So, everybody, today in this episode, I have a special guest. His name is Sujan Patel. And Sujan is a data-driven marketer and entrepreneur. He is a high-energy individual fueled by his passion to help people and solve problems. He's also managing director of Ramp Ventures, and he's a co-founder of Mailshake, Volanonboard, WriteInbox.com, and many more SaaS companies. I believe he also runs an agency called Web Profits, if I'm not mistaken. So
That's right, yeah.
first time I've heard about Sujan, I think it was 2 years ago, and you actually appeared on the Salesman podcast, and you were speaking about one specific tactics, adding into the signature of your email a testimonial from your client as a digital agency owner. And it really intrigued me because at that time I was, we were a lead gen agency, so we were sending a bunch of cold emails, and many of our clients are digital agencies. So we actually implemented that straight up. And then I researched you and I found that you have Mailshake and everything else. I use Mailshake. Today, I think we actually got like 7 leads from Mailshake. Pretty good. And so I love the software you have. I know all of your SaaS companies are sort of related to outreach as well. And you run an agency, which is a super interesting kind of mix for me. So why do you still then, let's talk about the agency first. So why do you still work at the agency when you have multiple, SaaS businesses on the side? Because from my experience, usually agencies are sort of the testing ground, and companies or founders then launch SaaS businesses and just go with them. So why keep agency as well as other businesses?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 things, or a couple things really. One is I always like working outside of the box, the bubble. When you go and do your own, when you're an in-house marketer, when you're thinking about your own products, you go really kind of deep and you get narrow focused, narrow vision. And sometimes you need to take a breath and be like, oh, like the world around me is still moving around, and what are other people doing? And so when you're involved in different consulting projects, that helps me personally kind of think outside the box, and avoid that very narrow thinking that happens very slowly. But as you go further in time, founders just kind of go into this like very narrow vision. So it kind of helps me avoid that. The other thing is we have a really good team. And so I have made some adjustments since we've scaled up everything. Web Profits now has kind of its own management team. We have head of marketing, head of sales, operations person, that lets me really focus on the things I want to be involved in, which would be, new clients, strategy, and I can come and go as I need, because we've got some really sharp people to take care of our clients. So I'm not as involved in the day-to-day, or don't need to be involved, and things can run better than if I were doing it. And so I kind of I love starting things, and scaling up is where I start to hire the right people. And so, if I told you there's 2 businesses, there's Ramp Ventures and we have all our companies underneath there, and then we have Web Profits, but both of them are making money, they're profitable, they're growing. It's kind of stupid to shut down one to focus on something else, right? So instead of doing that, we focused on kind of building up the management team so it can run a little bit smoother, and the day-to-day doesn't have to bog me down. Like I'm not involved in client meetings anymore. I haven't been for some time. I am involved in the back end of like a strategy where we're like, what we're going to be doing for a client, but that part is fun for me. That is where I can expand. And also both of these companies are in the race for 10 million ARR, and web, think about it this way. Our client services at Web Profits are range from, about 70K to 100K. I would say like 100K annual minimum is the new kind of minimum we work with. So you take out one new client, it just pops you up really high. Whereas at Mailshake, for us to get another, $100,000 in ARR, we need a lot of customers. It's just the math. High volume versus high revenue potential.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so you guys are, I believe, from Australia, the agency, or how does that work right now?
Yeah. So the agency is kind of global. I run the US business. We've got a big team in Australia, we have some folks in Singapore as well. So those are the different regions that we kind of target. Our centralized team is in LA and Sydney. And so a lot of our team is there. It's pretty much Web Profits is a joint venture between myself and Web Profits Australia. We got a solid team there. So I was doing consulting at the time of starting the SaaS businesses, and instead of scaling and hiring my own, I ended up, partnering up with the Web Profits Australia team and scaling an existing agency.
Mm-hmm. And so, there's multiple, there's millions of agencies out there. And so I don't know how big are you guys, but just like in Prague here, I think we have over 3,000 and it's just one city in Europe. So like, how do you, what is the core service actually? And then how do you stay, different to, when you compete with a bunch of other agencies out there?
Yeah. So, look, there's millions of agencies out there, and there's more and more popping up every day. The barrier to entry is very, very low, right? You quit your job, you take a client, and now you're an agency, right? You make a website, very, very simple. You don't have to be a good agency. You could be an agency. Where we stand out, where we're different, is that we are a growth kind of marketing agency where we do all the different channels. We're really an outsourced marketing team, or we can be a replacement for a VP of marketing. So our team and leadership can go and run marketing for multiple companies. Our real difference is that we can do Facebook ads, landing page design, conversion optimization, email. We can kind of do it all. And as you know, growth is no longer like a specific channel. It's morphed into more of an omni-channel, and kind of all parts of the business need to be addressed. And so that's what we've done from day one. And so that's kind of where we're different.
Do you guys have any niche where you focus on specific brands or specific industry, or is that are you past that mark where you guys are now?
We work a lot in the SaaS and e-commerce world, but we don't have any specific niches. We have companies all over. Like we've got education businesses, a lot of the software, a lot of e-commerce. We work with lots of CPG companies, large kind of public companies. We don't necessarily have a niche specifically, but when we talk to a client and we do try to determine the right fit, a lot of times there isn't the right fit. And so, like I have the luxury of just being very, very picky. And it's a good thing, right? So like just as a customer, a potential customer is vetting us, we're doing the same because we want like the long-term relationship. Ultimately, that's the key. And this is my second agency. So I've learned a lot from my first one. I've fixed a lot of the things that are broken. And so I kind of like just working on different things every day. Sometimes it's kind of stressful, or I wouldn't say stressful. It's sometimes you get the convergence of like my morning today. We're releasing 3 new features at our company Right Inbox. We're launching a new plan, whole new product set at Mailshake called Omni, and we're growing a sales team. We've got some new clients at Web Profits. Like everything kind of flooded my inbox and Slack messages this morning and last night. But, after a few hours of just kind of catching up, things can start to clear out, and, it really comes down to prioritization.
Yeah. I have this problem because many people say you have to have a niche, which we have such a specific niche where we only focus on software houses from Eastern Europe. We're bringing them US clients, and like, there's no other agency that does this really. My partner is really one of the best sales directors here in city from the US. And so that's such a specific niche that I can't actually offer these services to some other types of businesses. I mean, we could offer that, but we need to add something because we cannot work with enterprise clients, which I definitely would love to try. And so sometimes this niche picking can be tricky. And how do you then decide to what kind of services are you going to offer as an agency? Because there's so many channels, right? We are an outbound agency, but we also do some inbound. But how do you guys, go about picking your service offering?
Yeah, so I think it depends on where you are as the size of your business. If you're just starting off, definitely better to be a specialist than a generalist. But as you scale, you kind of have to go broader to expand revenue and market potential. What you're probably talking about is like your total addressable market is finite. It's small, so you have to expand to be to kind of get a bigger market pool. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to like also, how can you add value to your client? So for example, when I first started my first agency, Single Grain, we were an SEO shop. We did only SEO, and specifically we did link building and content creation. And then, people started asking us for SEO audits because they got hit when this was like when Panda and Penguin were really releasing. They just, every few months there's a new update. So we just did a ton of audits. Now, were we specialists in audits? No. Did we know what to do? Do we always, can we do that? Yeah. And so we expanded to that. And then we did all parts of SEO. And people were like, hey, like, I got you for SEO. You're working with us, but can you help us with PPC? And we're like, no, we can't. We only do SEO. And, after about 15, 20 times, people were like, hey, do you know any PPC agencies? We're like, why don't we just hire from some PPC experts that can do it for our clients? And so it was more from the demand side than it was like a generalist. Now, if we started with everything, would we be successful? Probably not. We would be too spread thin. But as you scale, you can kind of expand. Same thing goes with Web Profits, is that, we were doing lots and lots of advertising to start with and content marketing as well. And people were like things weren't converting, right? And we gave landing page feedback. We gave all the things to do to clients to fix the conversion, yet it took forever or didn't get done. And ultimately it was our ass if we didn't provide results. And the client, tried to get the things implemented, but what we found is like, well, why don't we just do the landing page design and development and go build it for them? And instead of saying like, here's the things you need to fix on your website, we say, here's what we found. Here's our version that addresses these 4 issues that we've already implemented. Let's just A/B test this. So value is greater, right? And so again, not a service we sell as CRO alone, but a service that we do alongside our advertising and traffic generation.
Yeah, I had multiple clients asking me for PPC and stuff like that. And I always said like, well, that's not what we do. But do you usually go about, I don't know, getting a partner, like some other agency that does that and kind of white labeling their work? Or in the beginning, or do you, if somebody's asking you about that, do you bring a person in-house straight up, or do you kind of use some freelancers? How do you go about?
Usually I don't do any agency, like any other, I don't contract it out. I usually will go, I'll only do it if it can be sizable revenue, sizable impact. So, we have a threshold. I won't share the number, but like if it can't generate X in revenue or potential, then it's not worth doing. So at that point we would refer people out. And until that point, we would just be specialized, but then we'll go higher and pilot it maybe with 1 or 2 clients and then scale up. But yeah, ultimately it really comes down to, for me and how I'm able to do multiple companies is really being, saying no a lot and being like, here's my bar for like, if we should do this. And if it can't get, let's say $1 million in revenue a year or whatever, to us, it's just not worth doing because, at some point down the road, it's just going to be a distraction, or even in the beginning.
Right. You've mentioned you're involved in the strategy with clients. So how do you actually, that's what I'm struggling with right now, because I'm trying to outsource that. And there's like, it's really hard to find someone who can create strategy. So like, because we charge for strategy. I don't know if you guys have that first initial step as like a workshop, paid workshop, where you kind of draft a roadmap, but we do that paid and there's no other person who can do it except me. So like, how do you have anyone in your team who can help you out, or do you have to be there all the time?
No, we've got like a head of marketing who can lead that. I'm contributing as an individual contributor to parts of where I can add that value. But yeah, we've got, a senior person to do it. And so that's the thing, is like, it's all about figuring out how to like replace yourself and then hiring folks that are smarter. Again, like that's why there's a minimum revenue threshold or some bar of number of customers, because a senior marketing person, a VP marketing, is very expensive, right? So you need the revenue and clients to justify that. Not just the revenue, but you also need to not make sure they're bored, right? So if they're just like twiddling their thumbs and you do have the revenue supported, but they don't have enough to do, that's also bad, because eventually they're going to leave. They're going to get bored or whatever.
And so you've mentioned that you have a lot of clients right now. So how many clients do you actually have? How many clients can you serve as like on continuous basis right now?
Yeah, I'm not willing to share that number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering because of the capacity issues. Say there's from my experience, I have people in the team, and they can maybe handle 5 to 4 clients at the same time. But what's the kind of, because as if we keep rolling them more projects, they kind of, the quality goes down. So do you have any kind of number where you're like, okay, this is enough, like they can't handle more?
So it's not, we don't look at it per client basis. We've got about 95 people working at the agency. So
Mhm.
we've got a pretty big bandwidth for a lot of company or a lot of clients. I look at it as like individual threshold, right? And so let's say we have a really awesome Facebook ads person. Well, we're monitoring everyone's kind of capacity. We use Harvest for tracking what people are working on, what projects and whatnot. And ultimately we want to make sure that they're not burning out. And so when they start to get full, we think
Mhm.
about hiring someone else that's a specialist in that space so that they can then, scale up and onboard, offload some of their work, or maybe they share the workload or whatever. So it's per individual. It's very specific to kind of how our process is, more than it is applicable to kind of the general mass.
Mhm. And so how do you actually acquire clients now when you said you can't be picky? So is it more inbound at the moment than outbound, I guess? And how does that
Yeah, we
process
don't really
looks
do
like?
outbound. It's referrals and inbound. We've built some pretty good lead funnels, and I've been doing this for like 15
Mhm.
years now. So most of it comes from kind of recommendations, referrals. That's our biggest, not channel in volume, but in quality of leads, and the number we close is mostly from referrals.
And so how did you get involved in the outreach space? Because, like you have a bunch of software companies who are doing that. So like, how did that happen?
Yep. So by accident, first, it happened by accident. Initially, we were doing outreach for, um, we built the Mailshake originally for content marketing people and marketers,
Mhm.
solving my own itch as had plenty of content marketers. Um, and I wanted to make their outreach efforts a little easier. The tools I saw weren't the best. We started, Mailshake was originally called contentmarketer.io, and we built like a bunch of things that can help you identify influencers and people and then let you reach out to them.
Mhm.
What ended up sticking was our outreach tool, and the people who ended up using the outreach tool were more salespeople. So clearly we had an issue with like what we intended to do, um, and what we ended up doing. And so that was kind of back in 2015, and then we pivoted in 2016 after like 9 months of kind of building a brand new product.
Mhm. I like Mailshake because it's super. It says like it's for cold emails, and you can use it as a recruiter or salesperson. And I've tried many other tools, and they're sometimes too complex for just an outreach campaign. And so
Yeah, exactly. That was the point, right? That was
yeah.
exactly kind of what we hit. So I was happy when I hear people say like, oh, it's simple, easy to use. It does this one thing and it does it well. Because that was really where I saw a gap. And my co-founder Colin built based off of kind of research and the gap. So the problem was when we started, and I think it's still there, is that there's a lot of tools out there. They all work their way, and the bigger tools like Outreach, SalesLoft, they do a lot. But when you talk to people who use it, they're never really happy with that tool. And the feedback I always get from either talking to the customers or reading the reviews is like, it does a lot of things, but I only use this one thing. And like, it's really rigid. Like, I need this one thing, and I just need to send outreach campaigns and emails to people, and it takes me like days to get somebody to train to use it. So we're like, let's just do the opposite of that. Let's just make something where it does outreach really well, and you can figure it out on your own with little to no training. And so, we don't do a lot. We don't have the best features. We don't have the most features. We try to have the best features. We try to have the things that can absolutely make people more successful. Like, for example, we looked at, we now have 20,000 users using the product. And we look at like what people were sending, and we found people's open rates are really bad if they have more than 5 or 6 words. Or we try to call out things and pay attention to like the mistakes people can make. Also, like if someone uploads a list and they didn't, now we have like List Cleaner, which can verify email addresses and help reduce the error, the number of like bounces, and improve overall deliverability. So little things like that. It doesn't sound like a big thing, but like we had to build some AI to be able to understand copy and analyze it and give feedback, and then fix it. So yeah, that was kind of all part of the intention of building something simple and easy to use.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have 20,000 users, but there's no free trial for everybody who's listening, at least from my experience. So how did you decide for that? Because everybody else is offering free trials. So
why? We did a lot of testing early on. We don't have a plan to have a free trial. We have a money back guarantee, and people do come in. I think probably a few people every month. It's in the single digits every month that like, hey, use a product. Can I please get a refund? Or like somebody signs up and they're like, oh, it doesn't work with my CRM, or like it doesn't do this one thing with my phone dialer, like, the specifics. And so we give it a refund there. But the point of the no free trial is that we get a lot more people with high intentions to do the right things. And so ultimately the conversion rate, the customer experience is much better. We can design a better customer experience because we know everyone in the platform is trying to use the platform, right? And so, whereas if you have a free trial, everybody that starts the platform you're trying to sell them to purchase, right? And so instead of trying to sell you to purchase, I'm just going to make you purchase to use it and offer a refund, money back guarantee. And that way I can focus solely on educating you to best leverage this platform. And if it's not the right thing, that so be it. So allows us to invest in customer success and more people to help customers be more successful. And it allows us to not have to sell, right? And so to our users. Now, don't get me wrong, we launched new plans, we add more features, functionality, and some of them cost more, right? We added A/B testing, and you have to upgrade to kind of use that. But ultimately, that's not us selling. But ultimately, we gave that for customers away. We gave it to existing customers away for free for 6 months, the first 6 months when we launched it. But yeah, high friction up front ultimately led to a better conversion rate, better customer experience, and ultimately, our goal is to have the greatest customer experience possible. And we're not perfect. We always try to improve that day by day.
Yeah, you guys have only one plan or two plans right now at the moment?
2, and we're working on a third one now.
Working a third one. The feature with the email audit is really cool because there's so many problems that can happen with that email. So I always see on the right side the AI telling me like, hey, make this shorter, or it's too long.
Yeah.
So,
and there should be like a way you can actually get in touch with us too, of for us to look at your campaign as well. So we've got full-time customer success, or 2 people helping with that, and we ask you a lot of questions. It's a long form to fill out, but what we found, this is really interesting. So there's pretty much we have an AI machine learning-esque audit that automatically, like when you write an email, it tells you like, oh, this is too long, your paragraphs are too bad, or like some common mistake I see most people making is like they start off writing about themselves. So we notice you say I or my name is and stuff like that, we'll flag it, right? So there's automated things, but then you can actually say, I want to request a review. And that form is probably like 30 questions, maybe 25, 30 questions.
Okay.
What I've found from customer surveys is people they help themselves after filling out the form, because they're like, oh, I never asked myself that question. I never thought about it that way. And so, really the form itself actually solves people's problems, oddly enough.
Yeah, I think it's I'm doing cold email audits all the time. That's actually my opt-in on the website, and it's not fun. Most emails are so bad that, and I'm not even from the US, but I can see that. So, yeah, maybe are you guys working remotely right now, or do you have an office because you have multiple companies? So how do you handle that part of your life?
Yeah, we've got remote. We're a remote team. All of our companies are remote.
Mm-hmm.
And by accident, I think. But my all my co-founders are not in Austin. They're not. I'm in Austin. I was in San Francisco. I was in other places before. So yeah, I mean, I think it was just that I had co-founders that were in different places, and so we're like, why don't we just hire people, wherever we can find them, and so yeah, we became remote from day
Got it.
one as we scaled up. But yeah, it's been great. We've got a lot of people in Europe. We've got a lot of people in throughout the US. We have a couple, like one person in Brazil. So yeah, we're very, and then, obviously with the Web Profits team, we got LA, Sydney. I think we cover like every single time zone,
Mm-hmm.
almost,
Yeah.
almost every time zone, except
Yeah.
like, yeah, we've got some folks in Singapore, but yeah, that we cover most time zones.
And so right now, when you're running these multiple SaaS companies and agency, like what's the biggest challenge you're seeing at the moment? Not just from like a business perspective, but like what's driving you next? Like, do you have any other venture you want to launch except these features you've mentioned? Something else kind of bigger in the future? What's kind of driving your mission forward?
Yeah, so I mean, at Ramp Ventures, we're always buying and growing companies. So, probably looking at buying one or two a year. Really just focus on scaling what we have now as well.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of exciting things in the details of what we do. I can't share all the specifics, but it's not just features. It's not just like scaling up marketing, but there's a lot more interesting things in the back end that can help us kind of help the business grow the business to the full potential, and then kind of round out the team. So we've been doing a lot of hiring lately, on the dev front, on the marketing front, and sales. So yeah, I think it's just like scaling up. It's the part that's not sexy. It's not really shown on the outside of the business, but it's a whole lot of fun.
Hmm. Got it. And so I have just a few final questions. Maybe if you can tell me what time do you go to sleep and when do you wake up usually? I don't know if you fly a lot, but
So I have a newborn. My
mm,
son's 5 months old. So I go to sleep pretty early because I'm pretty tired.
got it.
So I go to sleep around like 9:30 to 10:30, somewhere then.
Mm,
Wake up between 6 and 6:30. He's my alarm clock. um, so I have the morning duty. So it's a lot of fun. I don't travel as much anymore. Um, I travel maybe once a month. I've kind of limited my speaking engagements, and I was traveling a lot more for speaking,
mm,
um, to kind of 4, 5, 6 a year. And I think for already like since January, I've been booked up for the rest of the year. So maybe I'll say yes to one more, but like I'm pretty picky with kind of where I spend my time.
got it. So do you have any routine right now when you have the new kid, right? So what's
Yeah,
kind of your routine looks like?
yeah. So I have a really good routine. I think right now, between 6 and 7, I am kind of on Slack answering emails, catching up with the folks. A lot of my team is in Europe, all
Mhm,
parts of Europe, from like Greece, Belgium, Ireland, like just all over. Um, and so those guys are like working but
mhm,
before I wake up, right? So a lot of times they just have questions or things I need to review, um, QAing stuff, giving feedback, stuff like that. So that usually happens between 6 and 7, 7 to 8, or like 6:30 to, whenever Maverick, my son, wakes up. It's spending time with him, usually hour and a half in the morning, and then we take him to daycare, and I go to the gym, come back from the gym, and usually by like I'm mostly in the mornings until 1 or 2 or 12 or 1. I'm working with my team. I'm not actually able to go and do stuff myself. Like I'm not able to go and like write a blog post. There's too much stuff going on. I'm more giving feedback, reviewing things. And then after about 12 or 1, that's kind of when I can get my critical thinking done, when I can work. So from 12 or 1 to like the rest of my day, I'm usually, reading, writing, blog posts or creating videos, and, coming up with new ideas, talking to folks, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you plan your day a night before, like what you're going to do the next day? Because that's what I do. So I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always try to have, I've been doing that for quite some time. I try to go to sleep with inbox zero, usually pretty good about that. And then, look through what's ahead and just make sure I know what I'm getting myself into for the next day.
Got it. So what's your favorite app maybe that you use daily, except maybe you use Slack? So anything else you use can be helpful for everybody?
Yeah, let me actually pull up my phone right now. I use a lot. I don't use that many apps. I use Things.
Mm-hmm.
Things is like a to-do list. Really, it syncs with Mac, so it's easy. I use Evernote, but like Things is my favorite app because a lot of times, like I try to get to inbox zero every day, and I'm usually like one to three emails max is there when I go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times an email is left unread because I have to respond to them. Or like I have to do something based off that. So I can turn that. If I have to respond, what I do is I don't open the email until I have the bandwidth to respond. A lot of times people like open the email like, oh, I'm going to do this later. It's like, no, don't even think about that until the later comes. The other thing is when there's an action item, I'll turn that into a to-do list. And now I know when I'm going to do it. So I kind of make sure that everything that I have going on is either I have an action, somebody else, it's passed off to someone else, or they're responded to.
I mean, you would be all day just reacting to emails if you didn't separate that, I guess. So that's awesome. And so any book you read maybe in the past few months or weeks that you recommend to anyone?
Yeah, actually, a book I'm kind of towards the end of right now, which is really good, called The Messy Middle, from Scott. I forgot. He's founded Behance, sold to Adobe. Talks about not the starting point of a company, not the end point, but the middle part. And again, like I was telling you, Jan, like I'm most excited about the things that I'm doing right now. But if I told you about it, it's not sexy. If I told you about it, you're like, what does that even do? How does that change your life? Or how does that change a product? And I was like, no, it doesn't change anything. So I'm really excited about this whole middle part that I'm in. And I think it's a good book that kind of describes what to expect.
Got it. And last question, maybe how many emails do you get per day?
Probably like 200-300, something like that. I don't know.
Really? Oh, okay. And that's one email inbox, or you have multiple, right?
I have everything going into one.
Oh, okay.
But that's not including like support. Like I don't count support. Those are things personally addressed to me. And I do a good job of like unsubscribing to pretty much everything. I don't subscribe to any newsletters or anything besides. Nope, no newsletters. Actually, Heathen Shaw's and growthhackers.com, they have the weekly newsletter, so that's a good one.
Yeah. I have a new app where I have blocked YouTube, Facebook, everything. So I just don't do anything, just focus on work. So cool. So very nice to meet you. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're busy. So go ahead, respond to those Slack messages, and good luck with your newborn. And I'm very glad you were here. This is actually the first or second episode I'm going to be releasing. So maybe next year you can come back. It's going to be one of the top podcasts. Maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thank you for having me. Very fun conversation, and take care.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.